This is Virgil Oldman, who works as an auctioneer and is responsible for selling antiques and paintings. He is someone who truly appreciates art and loves collecting paintings and antiques. Oldman was a lonely man, who had never been in love or married. He regularly dyed his hair and always wore gloves due to an obsessive-compulsive disorder that prevented him from touching things with his bare hands. He runs an auction where he sells artworks, including one particular painting purchased by Billy, who appears to be a regular bidder but is actually Virgil's friend. Billy attends the auctions to buy paintings on Virgil's behalf, ones that Virgil himself wants to collect. This time, Billy buys him a painting that Virgil adds to a secret room behind a wall, where he stores all the valuable paintings he has acquired through auctions, via Billy, all of which are portraits of women. This collection is considered a treasure worth millions. One day, a woman named Clare calls Virgil's office. Virgil speaks to her pretending to be his own assistant. Clare wants him to come to her house to evaluate the antiques and furniture. He tells her that Oldman does not personally attend initial visits. But she insists that her father will require Oldman himself to appraise the items. So, Virgil decides to go. When he arrives, the villa gate is closed and no one greets him. Clare later calls to apologize, but Virgil is harsh with her, saying she wasted his time. She explains that she called the office but no one answered, and she didn't have his mobile number. He replies that he doesn't own a mobile phone, then ends the call. Later, she calls again, crying, and tells his assistant that she had a car accident. When the assistant informs Virgil, he gets angry and refuses to hear anything about her. But the assistant calms him down and convinces him to speak to her. She apologizes and sets a new appointment. At the next visit, Virgil is welcomed by Fred, the caretaker. When he asks about Clare, Fred says she had a sudden fever, but tells him the house is at his disposal for the evaluation. Inside, Virgil learns from Fred that Clare's parents had died in consecutive years, she has no living relatives, is unmarried, and has no one in her life. While examining the house, Virgil finds a strange mechanical piece in the basement that catches his attention. He takes it to Robert, a genius with electronics, whom he met through Billy. However, Robert cannot initially identify the piece. Clare later calls Virgil and asks him to begin his work and move the items to be auctioned. But Virgil says he cannot proceed that way, he must meet her and sign a contract first. She tells him to be ready, and promises she will meet him before anything is moved. But on the scheduled day, she doesn't show up. Instead, she calls using Fred's phone. Virgil, upset, scolds her, but she apologizes and says she left the signed contract on the table and he will find it next time. However, as Virgil is in the villa, the ladder falls. He hears it both in person and through the phone call, along with all the workers' noises, meaning Clare was actually in the villa, hiding. He starts looking for her and hears her voice directly. Angry, he demands to know why she is playing games. She tells him to wait until after 9 p.m., and she will explain. Meanwhile, Virgil finds two more mechanical pieces similar to the first one. He takes them to Robert, who discovers they are very old, dating back to the 16th century. But they still cannot figure out what they are. Virgil's curiosity about Clare grows. He sits with Fred to learn more. Fred tells him Clare is 27 years old, and her parents died from illness. But Virgil is shocked when Fred says he has never seen Clare in his life. Virgil asks, "How have you worked here all this time and never seen her?" Fred explains that she has a strange condition, and only communicates from behind a door. Virgil later talks to her, and she thanks him for his efforts in appraising the furniture, says she will pay him, and ends the call. He becomes more obsessed with her and starts sitting at a cafe across from the villa, watching. There, a girl always sits observing people and has an amazing ability to count how many times people go in and out of the villa. We'll return to this girl later. As for the mechanical pieces, Robert later cleans them and discovers the name Vaucanson on them. When he shows this to Virgil, Virgil is astonished. He remembers Jacques Vaucanson, a 16th-century scientist who invented a machine resembling a robot that could talk. People used to pay to hear it speak, and it always told the truth. Robert says, "If we can find at least 80% of the parts, I can complete and assemble it." One day, Virgil's assistant tells him Clare called and wants to meet him at the villa. Virgil goes, but again speaks to her from outside the room. This becomes their usual way of communication. Clare explains she suffers from agoraphobia and a fear of meeting people. At first, Virgil doesn't believe her, but she insists she's had this condition since she was 15. She tells him she wants him to handle her antiques and furniture, and she trusts him completely. She asks him to leave the contract, promising it will be signed. When he returns, he finds it signed but with missing details. She passes him her passport under the door to fill in the information, but he notices the passport is from her childhood. She says, the info hasn't changed. As he returns it, she sees him through a hole in the wall and sharply asks, "Do you dye your hair? I hate people who don't trust their natural hair color." Angered, he throws the contract and walks out. But as he leaves, Fred hands him the key to the villa, saying, "Miss Ibbotson wants you to have it so you can check things anytime, but knock when you enter so you don't scare her." Virgil takes the key despite his frustration and decides to stop dyeing his hair. He continues collecting robot pieces. Fred even gives him a box full of them after noticing his interest. As usual, Virgil takes them to Robert and starts discussing Claire, pretending it's a friend, but Robert realizes he is talking about himself. Since Virgil has never been in a relationship, he seeks advice from Robert, who knows how to deal with women. One day, Virgil calls Fred and asks about Claire. Fred says he hasn't seen her in a week because he is sick. Virgil asks, then who is bringing her food and fulfilling her needs? So he goes himself to check on her. He finds her in pain behind the door. She had fallen and hurt herself. He becomes worried and tries to convince her to let him take her to the doctor, but she yells at him, "Leave." After that, for the first time in his life, Virgil buys a mobile phone so he can reach her. Robert helps set it up. Later, Claire calls to thank him for caring. They talk, and Virgil learns she is a writer of novels and stories. He asks, "Where can I buy them?" She replies she writes under a pseudonym and hates her own writing. Virgil tells her, "Every artist hates the outcome of their work, Miss Ibbotson." She replies, "But yesterday you called me Claire." He apologizes. She says, "No, I want you to keep calling me Claire." From then on, they grow closer. Virgil begins visiting and speaking with her more frequently. Once, curiosity drives him to pretend he left, closes the door, but hides behind a statue. He sees her finally leave the room, then quickly calls her so she goes back in to answer the phone. He had finally seen her. Meanwhile, Billy continues to buy him paintings at auctions. Billy sees himself as an artist, but Virgil always tells him he is not, saying, "Not everyone who picks up a brush is a true artist." Virgil once shares a view with Robert, saying, "There is always something authentic in every forgery, because a fake tries to imitate the original, but unintentionally adds a personal touch, revealing its own kind of creativity." Then we return to the relationship between Virgil and Claire. He went to see her again but found that the keys he had no longer opened the gate. So, as usual, he waited at the cafe across the street, where he saw the same girl who had been observing those entering and leaving the villa. When he saw Fred coming out of the villa, he approached him and showed him the furniture appraisal documents. Virgil seemed upset about the key change, to which Fred replied, "I change them every 6 months. The new keys are on the table." They resumed their conversation, and Virgil asked her, "Have you ever been in an open space without feeling afraid?" She replied, "Only once. I was 14 years old and went on a school trip to Prague. I visited the astronomical clock square, passed by it 100 times. There was a restaurant with strange decorations. If there's one place in the world I miss, it's that restaurant. Its name is Night and Day." He replied, "I'd be very happy to take you there." After that, Virgil went and told Robert about the latest developments in their relationship and mentioned that Claire's birthday was in 2 days and that he needed to get her a special gift. Robert, using his experience, advised him that the first gift should be simple. So, Virgil brought her flowers and went to wish her a happy birthday. But she reacted harshly, accusing him of manipulating the furniture appraisals, in other words, of being a fraud. Furious, he told her, "I'll make them return all your belongings that are already undervalued. I want you to disappear from the face of the earth." Then he threw the flowers and walked away in despair. He returned once again, feeling lonely, and sat at his usual spot. But she called him, and he could hardly believe she was speaking to him. As usual, she was crying and apologizing, telling him, "You're the first person to ever give me flowers. I shouldn't have acted that way." As always, he forgave her and appreciated her honesty. He went to her house and saw a painting of a ballerina. He asked, will you keep this painting? It's not worth much. She replied, that's a picture of my mother. In the photo, she was my current age. He asked, do you look like her? She said, no. She's more beautiful. He got up to leave but felt a desire to see her again. He repeated his usual action, opened the door, closed it, and hid behind the statue. At that moment, Claire received a phone call from her boss, and she was talking to him about moving the furniture. She told him, I've entrusted the task to Oldman. I trust him. He asked her what he looked like. She said, he wears old-fashioned suits, but he's handsome. He asked, do you love him? She said, I don't think so. Like the others, he hasn't fully understood my illness. Virgil heard all this, and suddenly, his phone slipped from his hand. Claire heard it and screamed, who's there? She ran into her room and locked the door. Then she called Virgil and said, someone is in the house. I'm scared. He replied, I'm coming back right now. When he arrived, he tried to calm her down, but she was hysterical. He couldn't calm her and was forced to confess that he had been the one hiding behind the statue. She got angry and said, you're spying on me? Get out of here. But when he went downstairs, she followed him and called out to him. It was the first time he saw her face to face. After that, Virgil started buying her clothes and makeup to help her feel normal. Unfortunately, he began neglecting his work. When he was offered to run auctions in other cities, he asked his assistant to decline them. He didn't want to be away from Claire. He told Robert all about this and even invited him to meet Claire in person, saying that as an expert, he might understand her better. Virgil went to see Claire and had Robert hide. Then he and Claire sat and talked for a while. He had prepared a candlelit dinner and told her, if you don't like the dinner, I'll book the fanciest restaurant next time. She said, forget about me. Tell me about yourself. So, he told her he grew up in an orphanage because his parents died when he was young. When he made mistakes, a nun would punish him by making him do repairs in their workshop. He grew to love it so much that he would intentionally misbehave just to go there. Over time, he developed a deep understanding of art and painting techniques. Since then, he could distinguish between originals and forgeries. After leaving Claire's house, Robert asked him about her. Virgil said, she seems completely normal and is much more beautiful than I expected. Robert replied, do you want me to change my mind? Virgil answered, if I were you, I'd wish she never recovered so that no one else could see her. Later, Sarah, Robert's girlfriend, came to Virgil and told him that she loved Robert and feared he would leave her. She complained that he was always with a different girl and that lately, he kept talking about a girl named Claire. When Virgil heard the name, he went to Robert and told him, I'll send my assistant to collect the automaton from you and give you the payment immediately. Robert replied, but I deserve an explanation. Virgil responded, you're not someone I can trust. Virgil grew closer to Claire, and she showed him the secret room where she lived. He found the remaining parts of the automaton and, out of his love for antiques, felt moved by the curled-up machine. He went to Robert and told him he had found the remaining parts. Robert replied, I'm ready to complete it, but on two conditions. First, don't involve me in your personal life again. Second, take this check. I worked on the automaton out of passion, not for money. One day, Virgil went to Claire but didn't find her. He panicked and called Fred, who didn't know anything. Virgil went to the cafe and asked if anyone had seen her leave. They told him, she went toward the garden. He searched but didn't find her. He even looked in police stations and hospitals. He became a mess, unfocused and distracted during the auction, and everyone noticed and mocked him. When he inquired at her workplace using her alias, they told him no one worked there by that name. Then Robert called him and said, maybe there's another secret room in the villa. Fred replied, there's no secret room, but we never searched the upper floor. When they went upstairs, Virgil heard her voice behind a secret door. He opened it and found her. She told him that when she went to Prague on the school trip, she had been with her first and only love, who was older than her. That's why she loved that place. But on the way back, they were hit by a car. When she woke up, he was dead, and she has been like this ever since. That night, Virgil stayed with her, and they became intimate. Their relationship deepened. He went to Robert and told him what happened and thanked him for helping him and giving him advice. Another time, when Virgil went to see Claire, some men attacked and robbed him before he could enter. He called her but couldn't move or speak. She saw him collapse through the window, overcame her fear, and went out to help him. This marked the beginning of her recovery. She started going out, met Robert and Sarah, and even visited Virgil's home. He decided she should live with him and showed her the most precious room in his life, where he kept his paintings and wealth. She told him she loved him and that no matter what happened, he should know she truly loved him. Virgil told Clare and Robert that he had an auction in London next week and that it would be his final one. He planned to retire afterward. Of course, Clare didn't go with him because traveling was still difficult for her. After the auction, he immediately returned to Clare but didn't find her. The chef told him she had gone out with Robert and Sarah as usual. He noticed a picture of Clare's mother, the ballerina, and decided to place it in his most prized room. But when he entered, the picture fell from his hand. The room was empty. All the paintings were gone, and only the automaton remained. As Virgil walked by and broke a wire, the automaton started working and repeated, "There is always something authentic in every forgery." "I absolutely agree, and I swear I'll miss you, Mr. Oldman." Virgil went to the villa and found it locked with chains. He went to the cafe and asked the waiter if he had seen anyone move furniture out of the villa. The waiter said, "You can ask that girl. She always watches everything." The waiter then called her and said, "Clare, the gentleman wants something." Virgil was stunned by her name, but the shock faded when they spoke. He said, "I used to come here. Do you remember me?" She replied, "Yes, you came 9 times. This is your 10th. He asked her about the girl, and she described her as medium height, light hair, pale face. He said, "Yes." She replied, "I saw her leave the villa 237 times over a year and a half." He was shocked, as it contradicted Clare's supposed illness. She said, "The villa is empty now. I can offer you a good deal if you want to rent it." He asked, "Who owns the villa?" She replied, "I do. But I don't know what to do with it. I usually rent it to people working in cinema. For the past 2 years, I rented it to the engineer who made me the elevator. He is a genius, he can fix anything." Virgil then realized she meant Robert. It turned out that Robert and Clare weren't the only ones who deceived Virgil. When he flipped the picture of Clare's mother, he found a note on the back, "To Virgil, with affection and appreciation, signed, Billy." Billy was his friend who helped him with auctions and knew the value of the paintings. Virgil had a mental breakdown and was admitted to the hospital for treatment. He was unable to move. His assistant visited and brought him newspapers and magazines. Later, we see that he has recovered and traveled to Prague. He rented a room in a hotel and went to the night and day restaurant Clare had told him about, though it may have been a fictional place. A waiter came and asked, "What would you like to order?" Virgil replied, "Wait a bit. I'm waiting for someone." It's as if he still couldn't believe that Clare was a complete lie. In the final scene, we see him clinging to the hope of seeing her again. And that is how the movie ends.